everybody, this is Jose Arredondo, your tia's favorite reporter and huge wrestling fan. Those of y'all who know me, I'm a huge wrestling fan, and I have a special guest. This man is a YouTube host. He's a wrestler himself. He's probably the most yoked YouTube host you'll ever meet. He's from across the pond, Mr. Simon Miller. How are you, man?
I'm great, dude. I'm great. It's a pleasure. I really appreciate you having me on. It always blows my mind that I can come hundreds of miles away and somebody will have me on their show. That doesn't make any sense. But I'm very, very, very grateful for it.
Dude, when did I discover you? I would say about late 2016. And I just started watching like different YouTube channels on wrestling and stuff. And that's when I started to watch wrestling again, like full time. Because late 2000s, early 2010s, I was on and off with it because
that happens. Yeah,
I just fell out. And then I think The Rock's brought me back in when he came back to host WrestleMania. And I was like, oh, let me start watching full time again. And you know, I had Summer of Punk and all that, which is great. But I just started watching your YouTube channel. I was in college and I'm like, this guy's so great, you know.
Man, that's very kind of you, dude. Well, I always like to say, as I do have the opportunity, if you didn't keep watching, and I mean this, I know it sounds funny, they wouldn't let me do it because it's a views-based business. And so the fact that people like your good self continue to tune in, you allow me to do this crazy stuff, man. So I really do appreciate it. So thank you, my man.
Oh, no, man. Dude, it was so fun. I remember I'd go on road trips and just like, ups and downs. That's like my, you get your cup of coffee, you know, if it's a Tuesday or, you know, now, you know, Tuesday, Thursday, and, you know, Saturday, I don't know, depending where you're at, just because the shows that come out, Monday Night Raw, AEW, and SmackDown, so it's like, all right, we got to listen ups and downs and see what he has to say, see if he's thinking what I'm thinking.
That's so cool though, man, because there was a long while when you first start doing it where you're like, is there any worth to this? Does anybody actually give a crap what I have to think about anything? And when people actually do, and the coolest thing now is something big will happen. Yeah. Like Dynamite the other day with Omega coming back. And you get people tweeting, oh, man, I can't wait to see what you think about this. You're like, isn't that nice? Isn't that a lovely thing? Because who am I? You know, I'm just a guy that got lucky. That's all it is. There was an opening, and I took it. It's not like, I mean, anybody can do my job. I mean, they can.
I feel like a lot of people who are great at what they do, and I have a lot of people, and I'm not trying to like boast myself, but we like to downplay like certain things about ourselves. I don't know why. I catch myself doing that a lot.
Yeah, I get out of my way to do it. I think it's because it's twofold. One, I just think it always makes sense to be humble. Yeah. But also, two, I've seen so many YouTubers self-implode, and it always comes when they get a bit too big, you know, too big for their boots. I think it's always important to remember. The way I always describe it is this: if I was 12 years old, somebody said, Simon, when you're older, your job is going to be reviewing. Well, I was watching Raw back then, right? SmackDown didn't exist. Well, SmackDown, yeah, of course it existed. Are you going to review Raw and SmackDown, and someone's going to pay you? Then I was what? What does that mean? You know, so the fact that I now get to do it, and that's how I make my living, is, you know, I have other things that I do, but my main source of income comes from that. You can never get mad at that. And it can be hard work, like, you know, coming out here. I reviewed Dynamite yesterday at like 4.
I know, I was like, oh, I'm not expecting an ups and downs for Dynamite. And then I was like, this guy. 4
a.m. in the morning.
I was like, did he do it on the plane or something? Like
I will wake up early tomorrow and I will get Rampage and SmackDown done. I'll just do it from my bedroom, right? It'll be a weird one, but at least there's a cool story to it. And I think that's where the hustle comes. So there is certainly a hustle with it. I think most things that you want to be successful at have to have this kind of, you know, you have to be able to, or willing to go that extra mile. And I haven't missed an episode I rephrase that, I've missed 2 episodes in 6 years. And I only miss it because I'll go on holiday sort of for a week here and there. And I'll literally just take a week off. But I've only had 2 holidays over the last 6 years.
Oh my God, you sound like me right now. I'm just like, when's the last time you had a vacation, Jose?
Never.
I don't.
Never. Work forever.
Yeah. So, you know, you're doing ups and downs. When do you realize that it's something that's going to stick around? It's not just something that's just going to, we tried it, we'll do something else. When did you realize, like, this is going to be our thing here?
That's a good question. I think probably, and we've been doing it for a few years. When was WrestleMania in New York was 36, wasn't it? Was it? Yeah, 36 was New York. Or 35 was New York, 36 was the pandemic. Yeah. And then 37 outside with the rain. 38 is what we just
had, right? Gosh, I remember that one.
So, so 35, which was 3 years ago. We went to New York.
Was that Kofi Mania?
Yes, boom, it is what I mean. Yeah, absolutely. So we went to that one, and we did Ups and Downs for WrestleMania. Awesome, really fun. And then we went to do Raw the next night in the Barclays Center. And afterwards, people, they noticed the camera, and they said, "Oh, can we stand in the background?" Like, yeah. And by the end of it, we probably had 150 people just stood in the background joining in.
I saw that, man. And what I loved is that they were also very respectful too.
So nice.
Because you could get people who I think that's goes to you, who you are as a person. They're like, oh, you know what, like we want to be a part of it, but we don't want to interfere with it. And I feel like it was cool. I remember that one. I remember watching that vividly. I was like, man, like he has these people in the palm of his hand, and he's like, you would like. A casual who would have walked by would have been like, oh, this is probably one of the wrestlers who wrestled at WrestleMania, not knowing that, oh, this is a guy from from the UK who's like, YouTuber.
It is crazy. But I think that was a moment when I was really like, oh, wow. And so many people came out afterwards and said, like you just did, really appreciate your show, find it so nice. And you're just like, okay, this is I still always try and play it down, but in those moments you are like, holy crap, this actually means something to people, even though it's ridiculous. It's just a guy going, that was all right. That was a bit crap.
No, literally, it's so cool. And I remember you had, you and Chris talked about it, you and Chris Van Vliet, y'all talked about it. There's so much negativity in wrestling, and that's something that we can watch. Obviously, like, you give a down, it's quote unquote negative, but you give reason behind it. There's no malice behind it.
I've always because I started wrestling, I understood how hard it was. So I can't crap on a match. I can't do it because I know nobody went in there and goes, we have a terrible match. No, things fall apart. And also, like you said, Matt, when I got into it, 2016, I think it's important to watch what other people were doing. So I mean, if you go back and watch my videos now, it's deer in the headlights. Like, but you learn and you get better. And I wanted to see what other people were doing. And by the end of watching 4 or 5 videos, I was like, I'm miserable because they were so, oh, this is crap and that's crap. And I'm like, it's not all great, but you can always spin it a positive way. And because I did that in my own life anyway, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look for the positive, not in like a cheap way, but I'm actually going to go, well, actually, if you look at it this way, it wasn't so bad. And at first, it was a nightmare. I mean, it really was. People messaging you, positive, Mother Hubbard, this is bad. And you're just like, okay. But I was like, no, I'm going to stick with it because it didn't feel fake to me. It felt like, well, no one else is doing it. This is who I am as a person. And then over time, it just like beat people down. I had it the other day. I hosted a show in the UK called Progress Wrestling. And some guy came up to me, I just wanted to say, Simon, I used to hate you. That's what he said. He was drunk, to be fair, but it's still, because I used to hate you, but your endless positivity won me over. I was kind of like, is that a compliment? I don't know. However, I thought that was cool. Eventually, it just got in and was like, you know what, maybe we could all be a bit more, because we can all be a bit more positive. It is just wrestling. I love wrestling, but it is the most important thing of the unimportant things. Because if it went away tomorrow, we'd all be okay. However, it is in our lives, so let's make it enrich them as opposed to making it an absolute detriment and horrible. Not that there's anything wrong with that too. If people want to do that, that's cool. That's not my bag at all, no way.
So what's your earliest wrestling memory? Like, I remember you said that Bret Hart was one of your early...
first.
Could you talk about, do you remember, what match was like, oh man, I love this?
So I don't remember the match. All I remember, the thing I had vividly scarred into my brain, he was putting the sharpshooter on someone. I remember the crossing of the legs. And it was only recently in the last couple of, maybe even this year when I thought about it, because somebody else asked me that question. I think what drew me into it is I was very, very young when I saw Bret Hart, very, very impressionable. And this was during a time too, where it was like, you're a boy, you like blue, you're a girl, you like pink. And this dude was wearing pink. So I honestly, this is based on nothing apart from guesswork. But I think there's a good reason. I looked at him and I was like, well, this is against everything that I've been taught. And I thought that was fascinating. And I think he probably knew that too. Because who wears pink? No, even today, you don't really see a lot of dudes wearing pink. So yeah, it was that, and like he just looked like a badass.
Yeah, he was a badass dude. The glasses,
the hair,
the hair. I mean, even his attire, like it wasn't your typical trunks.
Nobody else wears it. He's got tights with the singlet on. It's like, who does that? No one. So I think all those things together, and this was just on the cusp of like '97 when he got. To me, '97 is Bret Hart's best year.
Yeah.
So it was a few years prior to that. But then when he did the whole '97 thing, that's when I was like, holy crap, man. And then I found out about WCW and that they were having this big war, and that obviously ties into things in your brain. And then that was it. I was just hooked. It never went away. And from a young age, I was always like, I want to be a wrestler. I want to be a wrestler. I want to be involved in wrestling. Yeah. And I think I took a break during university, college. Okay. Yeah, only because I didn't have access to it. But I still remember reading results and stuff like that.
What year was that, by the way?
That would have been 2006 to 2009.
Oh, so like in the heart of ruthless aggression.
Yeah. So there wasn't for a while, not now. There was a big sort of hole in my wrestling memory. I think I missed John Cena writing poopy on the limo, and I was like, yeah, it's not the end of the world.
So you grew up on the Attitude. So I was born in '95, and so I caught the back end of the Attitude Era. And but first, before I go into that, how did y'all watch, wrestling? Because I mean, there's a huge time difference. Like, what time was it on when y'all were?
So this is nuts, right? Obviously now, world has changed. Yeah. Raw airs at 1 a.m. Tuesday morning for us. You want to watch it, you DVR it, or you stay up. Damn. Back in the day, aired Monday night. We didn't see it till Friday at 10. Yeah. 5 days, Friday at 10. And SmackDown would be on, get this, Saturday morning at 11 a.m. That's when it used to be on. So you go to bed, watch Raw, get up, and you'd watch SmackDown.
That's cool though, actually, because you get to two birds with one stone.
Yeah, but obviously now you wouldn't be able to do it because of the internet.
Yeah, the internet.
I mean, the internet was still big then, but I was a kid. I didn't have super access to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you used to have to wait 5 days, and me and my mate Luke, shout out to Luke, 10 o'clock, get a pizza in, watch Raw, go to bed, get up, watch SmackDown, boom, we're done. But yeah, it was really, really strange. And Nitro would be on the same time, even though they were on Monday. It was on Sky. So WWF was on Sky Sports, and Nitro was on. I think we did have TNT back then. I think there was a UK TNT channel. I think it was called Bravo or something, but it was that company. And even we would switch. And you'd be like, why are you doing this to us? It's been 5 days. Air one until earlier. But that's how crazy that war was, right? And then, that's what we used to do. We just had to wait a whole week before we got wrestling.
What was it like to see that war go on in real time? Because I can only appreciate it from what it is, hindsight, looking back in it and watching the docs and whatnot. But what was it like just flipping through the channels?
Yeah, so I was super young, but there was still something exciting about it. And I was a WWF guy. That was the first product I'd seen. But then when Brett jumped, I was like, I got to watch some WCW. And they did have some good stuff. Like Goldberg especially was super cool. Yeah. But I remember I used to feel guilty. So I used to jump to Nitro during the ad breaks. And sometimes they'd have some compelling TV. And by the time I jumped back, I would have missed something on Raw. I used to feel so bad. Like, oh no. But it was a lot of fun. But I still think that putting them on at different times is better. Let me just enjoy both as a fan. Like, I don't need to have that. I get why they were doing it. It was really good for business. But yeah, it was a fun time. Although, again, I was arguably too young for the Attitude Era. So many times my parents would walk in and they'd be like, I mean, wrestling was...
And they're always walking on the perfectly wrong time.
Of course. So I think wrestling was banned in my household for, here and there all the time, because they'd come and they'd see Val Venus talking about who knows what. And I didn't know, but they knew. So they were like, that's being turned off. And then they go, okay, you can have another go. So it was kind of an interesting time. And I stand now. You go back and watch a lot of the Attitude Era. It's terrible.
No, and I say that, like, bro, like, hold on. Before I even get into that, let me just, for my own. Okay, cool. We're still good. For me, I argue with the older generation. I tell them, ruthless aggression was better in my opinion, only because you had the Attitude Era guys still there for the most part. But you had good writing. You had two different brands.
Yeah.
You had you had the SmackDown 6. You had Triple H being the most evil person on Raw. Like, to me, that was like perfect time to be a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my, because to me that was the war. It was the internal war, where it was like, hey, you're a Raw fan or SmackDown fan. Like, that's how it was in the States. I was a SmackDown guy.
Yeah. No, totally, man.
Eddie Guerrero's my guy.
Right? I mean, how cool was that rise? I mean, that kind of sums it up. But I think that's, I don't know how to put it, but yeah, creating that sort of own war between the two, arguably, I say this, if Raw nowadays was 2 hours, I actually think overall it would be a better television show than Raw in the late 90s. What Raw in the late 90s had was Steve Austin and The Rock and other people that definitely added to that. But it's that extra hour of Raw now that makes you go, oh my gosh. I think some Raw should be all just as good, whatever you want to say, but it's that extra hour. Because let's not forget, one episode of Raw ended with Kai and Tai trying to chop off somebody's penis. That's not good wrestling television. No one enjoyed that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you have to look at it for what it was. But also, I think this is the same for any wrestling fan. If you're 10 years old watching this and you're growing up, your favourite time will be now. And we'll get 10 years down the line and you go, I wasn't good as 10 years. Because the wrestling you grow up in is always the best wrestling. Because you're learning about things for the first time, stories are fresh, characters are fresh, and then you soon realize, oh man, we just repeat all this stuff over and over again.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I just love the era that I grew up in, because you had Eddie Guerrero and obviously Rey Mysterio. You know, I think for me personally, I had people that looked like me on TV. And
so important, right?
And that was so cool, because like Eddie Guerrero talked like my uncles. Like he had that Tex-Mex slang, you know, he used the word vato on TV. I was like, what? Like, how are they letting him say this on TV? This is so cool. You know, he's from El Paso, you know, he's a Texas guy. And in my humble opinion, Texas has the best wrestlers ever.
Hard to argue, man. Hard to argue. I can name 5 right now. Shawn Michaels, Steve Austin, The Undertaker. And you keep going on and on and on.
Mark Henry, Eddie Guerrero, like, the Von Erichs. Like, you just got so many people from Texas. But as a kid, you don't know where they're from. I think when I discovered Wikipedia, that was my favorite thing. So Google, what's Kane's real name? Glenn Jacobs?
Real name's
like, what?
Yeah.
Paul Levesque? What is that? Like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that he didn't use his real name. So Mark Calloway? Like,
I know, Sean Hickenbottom was the best, but that's Shawn Michaels' his real name. No wonder they changed it. No, but I think it's representation is so important, man. Like, again, when I was a kid, I didn't get any of that. Because you're stupid, you don't understand it as a child. But when you grow up, you have to. You got to see all different people on TV to let people know, oh, you can do this too. Like there is an opportunity for you, and I think it's well, wrestling's still not very good at it, to be fair.
Yeah.
You know, there's still certain, but at least it's better than it was. But that's the thing. I mean, I loved Eddie Guerrero. Actually, I'll tell you a story about Eddie Guerrero. I didn't get him for the longest time. No reason. You know, sometimes you watch people. It's like the Hardy Boys. I was always more of a Matt guy than a Jeff guy. I don't know why. And with Eddie Guerrero, I remember it was probably because when he first came in, they treated him like crap.
Yeah, with China.
Before that, when they were what they called the...
with Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko.
Yeah, and he broke his elbow or he did something, then he came back and then But it was actually when he started doing the China stuff, and I was like, oh man, this guy's the most entertaining...
He goes to the Playboy Mansion.
Honestly, the dude could do anything. And I think that's the real genius of someone like Eddie Guerrero, because it was different with Rey Mysterio, because you watch it straight away and you go, that's the greatest wrestler I've ever seen in my entire life. No, and to this day I say that. He's not appreciated. He's like 47 years old and still better than everybody else.
It's ridiculous. It's like, when is this guy going to... And I thought he was going to retire like early 2010s just because of the amount of injuries that he endured. But to see his, like, I think when he went to like Lucha Underground and stuff, that's where he like found himself again.
Resurgence, right? No, totally.
He did stuff with, he did All Out, I believe, right?
Yeah, he did, yeah. How weird is that, right? He did that speed main event because they ran out of time. It's like, go, go, go. But yeah, so I mean, Eddie was kind of the same, because their match at Halloween Havoc 97 is one of my favourite matches ever. So I knew that Eddie was amazing, but I know just the way that he was presented in WWE at first, I was like, well, it's because they didn't let him show any personality at all. It was just, whatever the hell they called those 4 guys, they're all just like, oh, we've come from WCW. And by that time, you're like, well, we've seen it. You know, we've seen it. But then, when he was allowed to take the ball and run with it, I just became one of my favourite wrestlers.
Bro, like, I remember where I was when I found out he died. I was at a community center after school, and one of my buddies who had internet would always, like, give us the scoop, right? Because none of us could afford pay-per-view, so he'd be like, hey, so-and-so on. Yeah. Like, I'll never forget when he told me to, he's like, hey, you'll never guess what happened. I was like, who won the Chamber? It was 2006 Elimination Chamber with Cena. And he was like, he's like, Edge. I was like, what? He wasn't even in the match. He cashed in the Money in the Bank. I was like, little kid me was so like distraught. I was like, no. Okay, well, that doesn't make sense. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, you're allowed to use it whenever, and that's when you like found out about Money in the Bank and
so badass.
Oh right? My God!
Cool. So
shout out to Chris Jericho for creating that idea, man.
I mean, it's so simple, and now every single company in the world has stolen it. Everyone's got Money in the Bank or some form of like item that you just give to somebody. But no, it was awesome, and actually, Eddie's death is probably the first time I really got into sort of internet. Because again, I remember refreshing pages, like, what do you mean? I don't understand, like looking for information. And even today, I don't really think there's...
Yeah, my buddy broke the news to me at the community center and I was like, what? Like, I literally just saw him when he fought Mr. Kennedy and he cheated to beat him. And, he was in that great storyline with Batista, man. Like, you could tell they had so much chemistry. Yeah. Oh, man. And then it was so sad that whole week.
Honestly, I think it was... I hate talking about stuff like this because obviously it was worse for his friends and his family and stuff. But as a fan, it was one of those ones where you were like, okay, this is no more of this. Do you know what I mean? No more of this. It's not worth it. It's not. I don't know what's gone on, but you don't want those kind of stories coming out. Obviously, a year later, had everything with Benoit. It was just, I know it's completely different. Yeah. I just remember thinking, this is the kind of wrestling that we don't want at all.
I remember my uncle. He was a big wrestling. He still is, but I remember I went to his house because we would watch Raw because he had cable, and my cousins were like, he was crying all day because he found out about Eddie. And
I mean, that's crazy, right?
A grown man, like, you know, probably my uncle was like in his early 50s, late 40s at the time. And, you know, that's just how much we connected with Eddie. Even to this day, it's just so cool. Like, I love anything positive of Eddie that I see on Twitter, which is everything's positive about him. I just retweet it, or I'll listen to old, like, podcasts of people talking about him. I love listening to, like, Vicky and Chavo and Ray and Conan and all of them talk about him. Like, tell those cool stories about him. I was like,
that's great, though, man. Like, obviously, you know, it'd be much better if he was around today. But the fact he left that kind of an impression on people. He's a hero. That's it.
And his run in WWE wasn't even that long.
No.
But he did so much in that small window. I want to segue into, you know, someone that rivaled him, you know, in the other company. And I'll never forget, they had their match, but then there was a lot of interference during the draft, was Triple H. I know he's one of your favorite wrestlers.
Yeah, controversially so, eh?
I know, man.
Well, Triple H is so weird. Triple H went from, you know, in terms of how the fan base saw him, late 90s, early 2000s, best heel there was. Ruthless aggression era. I mean, I think the term is the reign of terror, I think people use, don't they? And now he's a hero again, right? We've kind of done this back and forth. But even when he was doing all of his, you know, end of level boss stuff on Raw, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind. I don't know. Looking back now, don't get me wrong. There's a bunch of bad stuff. There really is. Booker T at WrestleMania 19.
Yes.
But I knew that at the time.
That's the only one that I'm just like, all right, like y'all had no excuse for this.
No. That's not how wrestling works. Like, I don't think they should have walked into that territory anyway. But okay, we've done it. He has to win to get the message out there. Don't say this kind of crap because it's bad and you will lose.
Yeah.
You know, and that was awful. But there were some of them where, well, I mean, maybe, I guess, suppose it would have been better if somebody like a Booker T or an RVD or there's probably a bunch of other guys.
Oh yeah, RVD almost won it too. I forgot.
Yeah, I think maybe that would have been good. But look, Triple H is another reason I kept being invested in wrestling. Because when I first saw him, he's the dude that made me want to go to the gym. That's what it was. I was like, well,
his
he looks
physique
amazing.
was just incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like he would always be on the. I remember every time I'd watch Raw or SmackDown, they'd have their you know, whatever magazine, because they had so many magazines at the time, and I remember Stacker 2. Like they had all these ads, and it was like Triple H is on the cover of this, and
I was buying
it. I'm like, jeez. I'd be like at a drugstore, you know, getting medicine or from the doctor, and just like I used to stay in. We had this store called Walgreens. I don't know if y'all have it over there.
No, we haven't got. I know what it is though, but we haven't got.
Yeah, so Walgreens, you'd walk in there and have all the magazines. So that's how I would get my pay-per-view news too. Like, oh man. And so just Triple H on the cover, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it's fine. Honestly, man, I would not be going to the gym now if I wasn't for Triple H. I wasn't. So when you have that kind of inspiration in your life, you can kind of look over, I mean, poor booking decisions, which a lot of them were. But again, what his impact on me was far bigger than, he didn't beat, apart from WrestleMania 19. That one, I cannot let that go. That was terrible. But so I've always been a huge fan. And now that he's in charge, I think it's quite exciting. I really do. And I think that, I'm not going to say the momentum has shifted back in their way, because I think that's unfair. But they certainly have more momentum, and I think it's because people are excited about what's he going to do. And look, he's going to make his own mistakes, because it's just life.
Yeah.
However, the way that he views wrestling, I think, may be more in tune with how I would like wrestling to be overall. But we'll see.
I mean, there's an argument you can make 5 years ago that NXT was the best wrestling product out there.
Yeah, I mean, a bad takeover doesn't exist as far as I'm concerned. I never saw a bad takeover. I saw ones better than others, but I never saw a bad takeover, and that was a large reason for that was his vision for things. So. It is mad though. Imagine in 2005, I'd gone, he'll be running the company in 20 years. You'd be like, what are you talking about? So it's cool though. Like, it goes to show that you never know in wrestling, which I think is fun.
But you got to give him credit too, because he put Batista over and he lost every match with Batista.
Yeah.
Like, he made sure that Batista was going to be the next guy. And to me, like, and I know some people find this insulting to say, but Cena and Batista were my Stone Cold and Rock at that time, because they were the guys, and they came up in OVW together, that 2005 Rumble where Vince blew out his quads, I was like, oh my gosh. And that was another one, like, when you were a kid, Cena or Batista, and it's just
absolutely, man. Yeah.
Oh, Batista's stronger, or Cena's better on the mic, and it's just like, you have these arguments in school, like, no, this person's better. So you got to give Triple H credit for that because, you know, the Reign of Terror, but, I mean, he did end it with making sure Batista was going to be...
Honestly, he made that guy a star. And now look what he's doing, right? I mean, he's absolutely smashing it.
Oh my god,
dude's in movies,
big time, like billion-dollar movies too. Like,
oh man, so yeah, I know I loved all of that, and yeah, the Mania match 21, wasn't it? It's so good.
Oh
so good.
Man, that I have that DVD because that's my favorite Mania ever. Because that's when you had the next generation get put over, and you had a new match, Money in the Bank get implemented. That was you had Eddie and Ray. That's one of my favorite. Everyone says 17. Great argument, WrestleMania 17, can't argue with that, but 21 was a pivot. Like, I was like maybe 11 at the time.
It's perfect, right? It's just that's the thing again. It's always going to tie into your age and stuff. But no, yeah, I loved all of that. That whole feud was awesome. So well done. Yeah. Which is another reason I get excited about now, because the coolest thing about that feud was take your time. There's no rush. We're going to a little bit of tease here, a little bit to, you know what's going to happen, but we're going to make you wait for it. And I think WWE is going to benefit from more things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they're going to do stories like that. I hope so at least. But speaking of Batista, he's a guy that started wrestling at an older age, and you're a guy who started, at
an older age.
You're not old by any means. You're not old by any means. But in wrestling terms, to start and enter the business, what swayed you, what inspired you to just venture wrestling?
Well, it's kind of cheesy, but it's true. My favorite phrase ever, or motto, or saying is, the best time to do anything is 10 years ago or right now. And you can't go back 10 years. Can't do it. So you may as well do it right now. And that was it. So I had actually tried doing wrestling a few times, but I'd been eaten and chewed out by it because there were some bad eggs in wrestling. They saw me coming a mile off. So it was really, when I started doing the YouTube stuff, that really reinvigorated my passion for wrestling. And I just said, right now is the time. I'm just going to get it done. Even if the training is horrendous, I'm just going to, fuel myself through it. I just wanted one match. That's all I wanted to do. And that's what it came down to, the fact I was like, I don't want to be a 70-year-old man if I'm lucky to get to 70. But I don't want to be a 70-year-old man regretting that I just had to try it. Yeah. I just had to try. I just had to know, because I think even if you try it and you don't like it, well, that's okay. You get your list out, you cross it off, you don't have to worry about it anymore. Well, maybe I could be a manager, a commentator, a ring announcer. There's 1,000 things. But I loved it. Was the thing. I remember before my first match, I was behind the curtain. I've never been so nervous in my entire life. I was terrified.
Was that the one that JR was on commentary?
No, it wasn't. That was the next one or the next two, I think.
Okay. I was so happy for you when I saw, I'm like, he must be excited to have JR on commentary.
Stupid. Absolutely stupid. But I came out and I went from being the most nervous guy to the happiest guy because people were very kind. Obviously, it was WhatCulture's promotion. Yeah. They knew who I was. And you just got one of those pops and you're like, you filled me. I was happy for days after it. And yeah, from there it was just like, let's see where it can go. Yeah. And look, training is not easy, but I did enjoy the training after a while. That's the one thing I always tell people, give it a month. After 4 weeks, you'll know if you like it or not, because the bumps suck. Of course they suck. But it really just was, I have to see this through. I have to see it through. And now I've got this cool platform that we can air a documentary on about how it is to train to be a pro wrestler. And it all just kind of clicked and it all worked out. And now here we are a few years later and somehow I'm about to wrestle in Texas for Mission Pro Wrestling. I mean, that's stupid. That's really, really stupid.
Bro, that is so cool. Like when I was watching the build up to it, and anything Thunder Rosa, I'm for it. And their team reached out to me a couple months ago about it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm down to do a story. Just let me know. Because I try and support all the local promotions here in San Antonio.
Yeah, it's important. It really is.
Yeah, man, because everyone starts somewhere, and there's this one wrestler, Maddie Rinkowski. I've been following her for. I remember I saw her. It was a promotion. It was like a crossover with Impact and River City Wrestling, which is a local promotion here. And I saw her do a scissors kick, and I'm like, who is this woman? Like, she was like a manager, and she executed a scissors kick, and
you knew, yeah.
I was like, okay, like she's just not some like Joe Schmo in a suit, like being a manager, like this is incredible. And I've been following her. She's done AEW Dark, and to see her ascend, I'm like, dude, this is cool. Like, this is exactly what I want to do, is just follow these young cats, because everyone started somewhere,
That's it, man. Like at one point, we use Triple H, right? One point, Triple H was a dude in a gym or in a center trying to learn. Yeah. And you never know. And you never know. That's why when people go to me, what do you want to do with it? I just want to take it day by day. Yeah. I never would have said I want to come to Texas to wrestle, because it would have seemed so ridiculous. Yeah. And now here I am. So, you have to, and that's why, I know about Maddie's story as well, and everyone raves about her, and you never know, she could be at WWE in 3-4 years, or AEW, or, smashing it in PWG. You just don't know. You don't know where people are going to end up.
For you, I know one thing you talked about with Chris in y'all's interview. He's my source, man. That guy just, great interview.
Shout out to Chris Van Vliet.
Yeah,
awesome dude.
Dude is amazing. Was figuring out like your character, because I mean it's difficult for you to be a heel because you're just this super nice guy. And people, like for you, I know you had mentioned is like you didn't want to insult the intelligence of the fans, especially nowadays. Kayfabe doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah.
How did you maneuver that?
So when people that don't watch wrestling and you say I'm a wrestler, they go, "What's your wrestling name?" And you have to go, "Simon Miller." They're like, well, that's really boring, but you hit the nail on the head. Like, we've done the Here's How to Be a Wrestling Journey series. Yeah. You got it exactly right. I didn't want to be, I'm like Bob the Slayer now. People are like, no, you're not. No, you're not. I know you're not. But so I actually use that as a good thing. Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm coming at it from a completely different point of view. I'm going to be me, and I'm going to be me as much as possible, and then we can kind of shape that around the stories. And we do that. However, after a few years of doing it, you kind of bed in, and eventually you do get Simon the YouTuber and Simon the Wrestler, which was always one of my goals, to be accepted as a wrestler. And some people still don't, but that's okay. But my peers do, and I'm like, flipping awesome. And so when we got to that point, there's a promotion in the UK called UPW, really good guys. And they rang me up and they said, we want to turn you heel, but we want to go proper with it. So no more good guy, proper asshole heel. And what we want to do is we want to take the YouTube stuff like you've done everybody else, but we want to spin it differently. You're a rich YouTuber, you've got a load of cash, people are idiots, why didn't you guys think of this?
Something that makes sense.
Right, so that people can still see it as me, but then we put the wrestling stuff into it. And I'd wanted to do that for so long. I was like, oh man, give it to me. Man. And it's worked wonderfully. Like there was a show on Thursday, which obviously sadly I had to miss because I was flying out here. But I got like a proper Paul Heyman asshole manager, shout out to Lewis. And he went and he did sort of some stuff. And he said, as soon as I said your name, people were like, boo, boo. And I was like, yes. And I don't care if they're playing along. I don't care if it's real. It doesn't matter, right? You're getting that required reaction. So what it's allowed me to do is it's allowed me to do what everybody else says. You take elements of your personality and you shuffle it around a bit, and it can come out this way. So I'm glad I get to do it there, but I can't lie. The happy, over-the-top, moron, whatever word we're going to use, is still my favorite way to play a wrestler. Because you're not playing, right? I come out, and when I get to, actually, it's something I was talking to the guys about earlier. Yeah. For ages, I thought I had to be, you're a wrestler, and one of my mates took me aside and said, don't do that. I said, everyone does that, for one. And two, that's not you. I know you. Like, you're an idiot. Not in a bad way, but you're a flippin' goof. Because be goofy, because I promise you, as long as you do good stuff in the ring, the goofiness is going to translate far better. And he was right. And ever since then, when I've been tapping into that, wrestling's been more fun, better reactions. So I'm like, okay, cool, that can be my character.
I've heard with a lot of wrestlers, it's like Undertaker, for instance. It's like, obviously he's not a living dead person, but parts of that is him. And like with other wrestlers too, who've talked about their characters, like Stone Cold, for instance, like. Stone Cold's a nice guy, but obviously he's a badass in real life, and so it's just like kind of you, but it's also, maybe amplify it a little bit more.
That's right, and that's the cool thing now. So when you're a good guy, you just turn it up a bit more, so you're super happy. Yeah. But now when you're a bad guy, just push the YouTube stuff. Push the YouTube stuff. Like, I'm flipping. I'm not rich. I don't mean to ruin that. But when you tie into that, and there's an actual, he could be. Because we have seen him, and some YouTubers are flipping loaded. So it really is the best of both worlds. I think it's, yeah. Ever since they got me to do that and be a proper character, I was just like, yes.
How difficult is the psychology part? Because when I see people like calling a match and in the match, and maybe you have to adjust because something happened. Like, how scary is that? Because that's just like, and it's live.
There's nothing, I'm always still nervous before going out. Like the pandemic oddly kind of helped because in the UK we had nothing for a year and a half. Man. So during that year and a half I was like, well, when I'm going back, I'll still be nervous because I care, but I'm enjoying myself, right? Yeah. Look how quickly it can go away. But yeah, that's the hardest thing in the world. And given what independent wrestling is, sometimes you can be in the ring with someone and they just want to stick to the moves that you've planned, which I get, I can understand. But all the best matches I've had is when you have like a structure, but when you're in there and you hear something, you're like, let's do more of that. And you know what I mean? I know it's cliched, but it's true. So you do start to learn, it's actually not about what we had planned. It's about what they want to do. And I remember sort of doing matches where you start off doing moves and stuff, and you realise, oh no, they just want brawling.
Yeah.
So you throw someone out the ring, and you say, yeah, they go crazy. How easy was that, right? So it's both simple and incredibly difficult. But those days, I think this is why people get addicted to it. Those days when it all clicks, you go home and you want to do it again, and you want to do it again because you realise that it all worked together. And you get the other ones too. You get stinkers when nothing adds up, but I don't beat myself up about them anymore because it can happen. It can happen on WWE and it can happen on AEW, which it does because they're human beings.
Yeah.
It can happen in all wrestling.
I've seen that where people try to, I'll never forget, it was Paul Heyman and Lesnar, and they were obviously the heels and Goldberg was the face, but they were in Lesnar's hometown. And I could tell this wasn't Heyman's idea because Heyman's a genius. But I guess they were making him insult the crowd. But it's like, this is where Lesnar's from. They're rooting for him. Like, and I saw it done really well when CM Punk and MJF were feuding. And CM Punk's like, you know what? I'm in New York. I'm in his hometown. I'm gonna insult them. And I'm still gonna do it to where I'm the good guy, and MJF's still the heel.
You stand by your principles, And I think that is when wrestling is really interesting. So there was a promotion as well that did book me as a heel, but it was more of a standard heel, mostly because I kept saying, please book me as a heel. Yeah. I remember we were having a match. It was for the title as well. I mean, it was just a silly title, but it's for the title. Yeah. And the fans weren't having it. It's quite a young audience. I think they probably watch YouTube. They're like, we're not booing that guy. We're not doing it. So in the match, bless the other guy that was in it, we just said, let's just change it. He was winning anyway. So I thought, well, let's just change it. You start heating up on me, I'll start, and it worked. And do you know what I mean? That's the coolest stuff, because that's what they wanted to see. So I think sometimes when you fight the grain, it's just not going to work, because the whole point is to make 100, 200, 10,000 people happy. That's it. That's all you're meant to do. So I remember I've had terrible matches what I thought were terrible, and I've gone out and someone's come up to me and they've said, okay, this wasn't great, that wasn't great, but the fans ate everything up. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I think or you think or what we think back here. I watched the fans, they reacted, they were happy. Who gives a crap about anything else?
I've heard Cena talk about that, where he says, it's better to get a reaction than nothing.
Exactly. Oh man, I've had those too. I mean, if you want to talk about feeling self-conscious, when you're in a ring and no one's making any noise.
Oh my gosh, like, what do you play off of?
Right, and sometimes it's just because they're tired, or because they're just that kind of a crowd. They just want to watch.
I don't know how people do it in Japan, because the people in Japan respect wrestling, and it's like kind of like golf, where they're just quiet and then it's clap. I don't know how people can play off of that, because it's just like, are we doing anything right?
I don't think I'd be any good. My favourite thing is just doing a move and getting a reaction, and then playing off that reaction, and jaw-jacking and talking and getting those back and forth feedback. So that's the cool thing about wrestling, right? There's 1,000 different ways to do it, and 1,000 different ways to react to it, and you've got to be ready for all of them. You do not know what's going to happen, ever.
Oh, I know. Like, there's some times where I'm watching, whatever product, and like, what's the crowd's deal today? Like, me as a fan watching, and I can't imagine what the talent, the wrestlers are, and the producers and everyone's like, what's up with the crowd today?
It happened the other day. So we had a heat wave in the UK, and fans were just knackered. Ooh. And so many of the wrestlers came to me afterwards. Was that bad? I was like, no. I could tell as soon as I went out there, they are exhausted. That's all it is. But it's a fragile industry. A lot of worried egos.
You mentioned independent wrestling, and we're here at an independent show or promotion ran by Mera Mera Thunder Rosa, badass woman. How vital is independent wrestling for someone's journey?
I think you don't have to do it. If you get signed to NXT or their developmental program, I think there's still every chance you can succeed. But for me, the amount I've learned from, again, you go to every single promotion is different. They have a different audience, they have different things they want, you meet different wrestlers. And also because if you're on different shows, like if you're lucky enough to do Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the UK, Friday you could be a luchador if you wanted, Saturday you could be a brawler, Sunday you could be a tech guy. Man. And then you can start figuring out what works for me, what doesn't work for me. And because not all of those shows are going to be crazy well attended, because it's not realistic, you can make them your mistakes and you can drop the ball, which means when you get your bigger opportunity, that's when you shine. You think, I'm going to take this and I'm going to take that. So you need independent wrestling. You just do. If it was just WWE or just AEW, you wouldn't get the feeder system that naturally sort of, beds into that. But you wouldn't be able to get the experience because there's just not enough shows, there's not enough matches. Whereas genuinely, if I'm lucky, if I want to work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the openings and bookings are there, because it's still hard to get, you can do that.
Wow.
And again, by that Monday, you're going to have learned, you know, so much more. And also tying it into Mission Pro Wrestling, of course, the fact that it's an all-female promotion goes back to what we talked about earlier, representation.
Yep.
This only clicked for me. I don't want to say, no, it's probably, no, let's be honest with ourselves, probably only this year, because I'm a white, bald man. You need to think about this stuff, but sometimes you need to be slapped around. Yeah. I've been on so many cards where there's one women's match. And it's hard enough as a dude to get booked. How hard must it be for a woman if there's only one match per show? Yeah. So this ties into independent wrestling as well, because maybe at the moment, for the same reason, we can't have a televised, well, we've got WOW and stuff like that's cool, but I mean maybe AEW and WWE don't feel like they can have an all-women's show for whatever reason. I'd love to see it, I'm not saying that, but they may look at metrics, who the hell knows? Yeah. So at the independent level, you have to have stuff like this so women can get the reps and get the experience. Yeah. And why wouldn't it? There's enough all-male. Why wouldn't you flip it, right? Why wouldn't you do it? So that's the other thing too. You could do that at the independent level far easier because you just do it. Yeah. And you just start opening your own doors.
How difficult was it experiencing COVID? Because I remember you were going to have a match with Callahan, right?
Sami Callihan. A WhatCulture death match. My flights were booked. My hotel was booked. I was leaving in 3 days. And then that Mother Hubbard Boris Johnson came on the TV and said, no, that's it, shut down. You're not going anywhere. Lost all that money. That's not what I really cared about, right? Because it's money at the end of the day. I mean, it sucked. Yeah. But people went through far worse stuff. Yeah. And they went through far worse stuff even compared to what I had. But losing that experience, I was so excited. And me and Sami had come up with all of this stuff. Don't mean to break kayfabe, but we'd come up with all of this stuff. And we were going to do all these crazy spots because we thought, okay, it would be cool for the venue, but also afterwards on the internet, we can just, you know, he's going to throw me through all these things. I was so pumped for it. It really felt like one of those moments you're like, because I'd worked my ass off that.
Yeah, I feel like you had a lot of momentum going.
Honestly, man, I had told everyone, if you book me, I will come. I was like, Field of Dreams. I was like, I'll just be there. And lovely people are doing it. I remember over Christmas, I spent I think it was Christmas Day, Boxing Day with my girlfriend and her family. Yeah. And then I was out of there. And that was the 23rd day, 27th, 28th, 30th. I just went and show. I just wanted to do shows. And I thought, that's it. Again, what we just talked about, that's when I can take all of this and we'll do it. A WrestleMania weekend in front of a decent crowd for Pro Wrestling Revolver. And then it got taken away. However, the flip side to that is think about what some people have to go through, right? People lost loved ones. People lost genuinely thousands and thousands of dollars. And you go, you know what? If that's what I missed out on, really, it could have been 1,000 times worse. However, in my own little world, I remember cancelling those flights because they said if you cancel now, you may get your money back. Oh. And we're sitting there like this. And I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I couldn't do it because I was so pumped. I was so excited.
How long do you think it took for you to recover from that?
I think I'm still recovering. Yeah, in terms of sort of the mental, because again, in the UK, we really weren't allowed to leave our houses for 18 months. You know, you could go out for walks and stuff, and eventually you could have one person in your bubble, which was my girlfriend, so we could see each other again. But I mean, from a gym point of view, I was in much better shape pre-pandemic.
I remember you were talking about how you hate, you and Chris were talking about, I hate working out at home.
Yeah, I couldn't do it. So I got really out of shape because I just could not do it. I couldn't motivate myself. So I'm still trying to get back there. I'm not as good at wrestling as I was then because again, I was getting the boom, boom, boom. And it's been great in the UK since, but there's been less opportunities because there's less companies because they're all still trying to get back on their feet after being taken out. So yeah, there's just so many, it kind of works twofold because there's so many things like, oh man, that was better. But at the same time, we were on through to the other side. So I'm arguably enjoying it all more now because again, I remember how quickly it can vanish. But it is what it is. I mean, it affected everybody, right? Who had world shutdown on their to-do list that year? Nobody.
That was a crazy year. But I mean, I think the good thing being a wrestling fan, wrestling still happened.
It really did.
You know,
I can't watch it now. Have you gone back and watched those shows? Oh my gosh, horrendous. No. So bad.
Like I saw like because I'm still debating if I want to buy 2K22, and I'm watching like YouTube videos of people like, hey, this is the gameplay. And there's like literally a setting of the Thunderdome, and I'm like,
I don't want to remember.
I was like, no, I don't want to know.
The Thunderdome was better, but I mean, I had to watch WrestleMania 36 the other day for some video-related thing. Yeah. And I watched that Brock Drew match to silence. You could hear Paul Heyman going, the whole time. And I just remember, how did I do it? Because it affected the show too. Because I had to bring even more enthusiasm because I wasn't enthusiastic about it at all.
I will say the Taker match was great.
Oh, the Boneyard match. Don't get me wrong. The Boneyard match, the Firefly Funhouse match.
Oh, yeah. See, oh my God.
There were good moments.
Yeah, those are the only two, honestly.
The Bayley and Sasha Banks feud, fantastic, but all of it would have been better with a crowd.
I feel so bad for Drew because he won the Rumble in Houston. The Raw after Rumble was in San Antonio.
Yeah.
He got the hugest pop, and Edge had returned. So wrestling was great. This is January still, and we're like, oh my gosh, like Drew's gonna get his moment. Because I've been a fan of his when he first got introduced, when he was Vince's guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, to see his journey back and, oh, man, I still feel bad for him to this day because...
I think he'll get it again.
I hope so.
He's a really nice guy as well. Because when he was doing independents, he would work some of the same independents. And he's a super nice, well-rounded individual. And he's a real good spokesperson for wrestling, I think. He's just... a good dude.
Oh man, he has the coolest chest hair too.
He does, yeah. Because wrestlers never have chest hairs, right? Yeah. They all shave, whereas he's flipping rocking it.
Like who was the last one? I would say Razor, maybe.
Yeah, Razor Ramon had it.
Like that looked cool. Like,
yeah.
We've seen it, like in, you know, some bigger guys that shouldn't have had it. But talk about your match tomorrow. Who you gonna square up against?
JP Harlow, that mother Hubbard. Like my word, there was no reason for it to be as heated as it has become. He's just mad that I got booked. That's it. He's just mad that some limey, gap-toothed Brit, as he calls it, is coming across. So yeah, he's made it all personal now. But that's awesome. That makes it twice as much fun, right? Because it means we can hopefully tell a story based on all the stuff that we have done as opposed to match, lock up.
Yeah, how difficult is it to tell a story when, you know, let's say you do have 3 independent shows lined up? It's like, how difficult is... I mean, I guess it's easier because we have social media and you can promote it through there.
Yeah. I mean, this one's definitely been easier more so because they deliberately made it a thing and everyone's got behind it, right? So we can tell those beats. But yeah, sometimes on independent shows, it's just turn up, good guy, bad guy, 10 minutes, go have some fun. These are the ones that are more entertaining though because again, people, if they're invested, which I assume they are, if they're coming to the show, they know what he said, they know what I said, they can pick a side. I mean, I've genuinely taken the side of good, and he's generally taken the side of bad. But it doesn't mean you have to support us in that way, which makes it even more, more exciting. So yeah, these are the best ones. And of course, it's small things. Again, I don't know what's going to happen, but are we going to start and lock up? Probably not, because that doesn't make sense, right? If for the last 6 months I've been going, you're a piece of crap, and you've been going to me, you're a piece of crap, do we shake hands and lock up?
Oh, no, man.
Boom, we go. And that's awesome, right? Because it gives us a reason to do it. As opposed to just, let's have a hot start because nobody else is having a hot start, which does work. It's like, well, no, of course they would be a house of fire because he hates him and he hates him.
Yeah.
And when the bell rings, no rules, get him. So, those are the coolest stuff. But yeah, me and JP Harlow, it's going to be interesting. Without a shadow of a doubt.
JP, watch out, man.
Yeah, you should watch out. I tell you, I'm mad.
He's mad, and I feel it right now, and I'm scared that
exactly. Maybe I think you, JP Harlow, beat me.
He's going to put me through the table right now.
Exactly. It'd be like one of those, Hulk Hogan did it and Vader did it. Remember when they go on talk shows and knock the other... Don't do that. It doesn't help.
Oh my gosh. Who top 5 all time?
All time?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Bret Hart.
Okay.
Steve Austin.
Oh, okay.
It's really hard because I think there are a few people wrestling now that will get in there.
Yeah, and I think you had mentioned that too, or you're probably going to wake up tomorrow and it's like, oh, you know what, this person's in my top.
I'll change it every day. I mean, I'm not going to put them in there now, but I think I'll go with retired wrestlers only because their careers are finished. I think Kenny Omega could get in there. I think a Young Bucks could get in there. For my own personal taste, I think a Kevin Owens could get in there. I think a Becky Lynch could get in there. Seth Rollins. All these guys I think are actually far better than we give them credit for. I'm not a huge Japanese wrestling guy, but I watch Okada. I think is Tanahashi. I think these guys are amazing. Yeah. But again, they're still going. So in terms of people that are done, Bret Hart, Steve Austin, I think you do have to put Ric Flair in there. Totally admit he's a controversial character, genuinely. But again, if we're going to start doing that, we can't put anybody in there because they're all controversial characters.
Exactly, especially back in those times.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And then it kind of gets harder. I mean, I err towards people like Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, because I watch so much of his stuff now, and I'm like, holy crap! In terms of, well, no, he had the character too. Like he had the character. Same with Macho Man. These kind of guys that you watch now, and you're like, what? You haven't aged at all. You can still do it. Even a Brock Lesnar is getting, or Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson. All these people because they're so good, right? And Eddie Guerrero is in that category too. So. Bret Hart and Steve Austin are always on there because they meant so much to me.
Yeah. And
I want to put Triple H in there, but then I'm like, well, there's other people that probably, in terms of their impact. Yeah. So if I had to pick 5, I'd go Steve Austin, Bret Hart, Ric Flair, For me, I think I probably would squeeze Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig. I loved it. Honestly, watching him now, he's so good. And you're like, my word, why don't we talk about you more? And then for a fifth one, me trying to think more character-based wrestlers that really sort of made an impression on me. Actually, no, I'm going to do what I always do. I'm putting Repo Man in there. That's what I'm going to do. But I genuinely, people think it's a joke. I love the Repo Man. I tell you why I love the Repo Man, because he just sums up everything that wrestling is. Why the hell would someone that repossesses things for a living be a wrestler? What? It doesn't make sense, but you can do it in wrestling. And that's why I loved him so much. There's no doors. It's like the Honky Tonk Man. Never forget, the Honky Tonk Man within the world of kayfabe decided, if I want to win wrestling titles, I should act like Elvis. That was his idea. And you're like, well, you're insane, and you probably shouldn't be a wrestler. But that's why people think I joke about the Repo Man stuff. But no, he entertained me. And I don't think you could get that in any other thing. So as a nonsense thing, I'm going to put...
Oh man, I love that. No, I love that. I'm more of a little guy, kind of, top 5, but The Rock has always been my favorite, one of my favorites.
I find it hard to put The Rock in there because I feel like he just transcended wrestling.
Yeah.
He's bigger than wrestling. That may sound like a terrible thing to say, but my mum knows who The Rock is, and even though she has a son that's obsessed with wrestling, doesn't know he was a wrestler because the movie career has just overshadowed everything. But of course he can be on that list.
Yeah, no, I just loved him so much. Stone Cold, obviously, he grew up an hour and a half away from San Antonio.
Yeah.
Shawn Michaels, even.
Oh yeah, him too. Actually, he'd be a
Oh my gosh, Shawn Michaels is. And he was actually better in his 40s.
Round 2's better than round 1, right?
Oh my gosh.
So strange. So strange.
Like, I was a part of his second run when he came back in 2002. And, oh man, every match that he had was so good. And I just, so upset. I don't know if this rumor was true, but they were supposed to have him and Eddie wrestle at WrestleMania 22.
I remember the rumor, yeah.
I was like, oh man.
Can you imagine?
That's a money match right there. And the only time you ever saw them in the same ring together was 2004 when Eddie had fought Triple H, 2004 during the draft. Shawn's in there. Like, there's a brawl and then the show ends, but there's like a YouTube video of what happened afterwards. And all the wrestlers are brawling. And you just see Eddie and Shawn exchange punches just real quickly. And I'm like, that was the only thing we got. Yeah. Oh my gosh. We want the folks to know out there about Simon Miller, for those folks in Texas who love wrestling, what do you want them to know about you, man?
What I want to know about me? Well, I want to know that I love wrestling.
Yeah.
It's my favourite thing in the world. And if you want to watch my stupid show, you can on WhatCulture Wrestling. It's called Ups and Downs. We review everything. You're right, it's Tuesday mornings Raw, Thursday mornings Dynamite, and then Saturday morning we have the double madness of Rampage and SmackDown. But yeah, I think mostly that I am a positive wrestling fan, probably to a fault. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think spinning things in a positive way not only means hopefully we as fans can enjoy it more, but hopefully the wrestlers get a kick out of that as well.
Yeah, right? To me what you're doing is you show people like enjoy things. It's okay to enjoy things.
And Twitter especially goes out of its way to stop that, which is perfectly fine. You're allowed to do whatever you want. But, I always say this, you get the people going, oh, that Raw was crap, that Raw was rubbish. And somebody will speak up, I actually quite enjoyed it, and they get torn down. Who's the winner here? The 99,000 people that didn't like it, or the one dude who was like, he wins. He wins every time because he sat down and it sounds a bit cheesy, but time and life is very precious. And he chose to spend that 3 hours with something and he got something out of it. We didn't. These people didn't. They got nothing. So I think it's always important to remember this guy. So yeah, that's my big shtick, is bringing positivity back into wrestling, supporting people for all their thoughts, no matter what it is. Even if you think that's the biggest joke ever, if something terrible happens on TV, it doesn't matter. Because there's going to be another show probably tomorrow.
Literally.
Because there's so much wrestling. And to always remember that wrestling goes on every single week. What else is there goes every single week? Sports don't, movies don't, TVs don't. It's the only thing in the world. So even if you do get a bad episode, shake it off. 6 days later, we'll do it again.
Yeah, there's always tomorrow. And what's his name? Brian Gewirtz, who just wrote his...
I released the book. Yeah, I've got it. It's for my flight home. I've got to go to go.
I just bought it. All the Barnes & Nobles in Texas only have one copy, and it's like each one, and it's pissed me off. And I found one, and I just been watching his press run, and it's just those stories. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Exciting, man. Yeah, it's always good to be let in behind the curtain, man. Right? Always. Even today. That's probably one of the reasons I still watch it. Fascinating.
Yeah, these documentaries, man. There's just so many. I just keep feeding them to me.
Always. I'll never get old of them. They're well done and they're interesting. That's all I need. Yeah.
Are you excited about the collab that $7 and Dark Side of the Ring are going to do.
Yeah, about the territories and stuff. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what version of events they tell.
Right.
But it still will have cool information, it will have cool footage, and more importantly, I think it's really important to keep that stuff alive. Like, I'm a massive video game fan, and obviously when we move to digital media, all that stuff is being forgotten. It's the same with wrestling. No. We've got to remember all the stuff that happened back then, because A, it's interesting, but B, it's the building blocks for everything else.
Like
so.
we got to acknowledge the people that laid the foundation, man. And I feel like, I know for me, like growing up in the early 2000s, I had to learn about the folks from the 80s, because they were, on their way out. They'd make their appearances. But like for me, it's just like, I got Evolution Ric Flair. I don't know about, NWA Ric Flair or WCW.
And that's perfectly cool. Like, I really hate, there's a lot of gatekeeping in wrestling.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you don't know. No. You're allowed not to know about that. And if you want to learn, awesome. But you don't have to. It still makes you a wrestling fan. Like,
watching those old matches, I'm like, oh my gosh, I missed out on a good time.
Yeah, but that's the same for every generation.
Yeah.
Attitude Era, Ruthless, you're watching wrestling now. That's the cool thing about it. It evolves, it progresses. But you can go back then, and if you watch it in the context it was presented at the time, you get a whole new love for wrestling, which is why it rocks.
Simon Miller, this is the man right here. Probably one of the kindest people. I've interviewed so many people in my life. You're top 2 kindest person I've ever met, and you're not 2. Thank you so much, bro.
Thank you, dude. I really appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much.
This was great. Cool, guys. Well, follow him. YouTube, WhatCulture, ups and downs. This man is incredible, and you'll learn a lot about wrestling.
Too nice. Too nice. Do it anyway.
From London, England, he is the master of the ups and downs, Simon Miller.
feel?
I'm blown up. Need to have better cardio. But no, genuinely, I mean, probably the best crowd reaction I've ever had. So, you come miles across, you know, it's a different country, and people treat you like that. It's pretty humbling. It's pretty cool. However, get better cardio. That's the message I'm sending to people. A fair play to JP Harlow. He's nuts, and he brought a shovel. But, you know, he brought it tonight. I don't respect him though, and I'll never respect you, JP Harlow. That's it.